Cedar Grove was a town where secrets whispered through the wind. Nestled amongst rolling hills and whispering willows, it seemed a picture of peace. But on the outskirts of town, shrouded by ancient oaks and a veil of silence, stood an old Victorian house. Locals called it Harper House. It had an air of melancholy, its paint peeling, windows boarded shut. Children told tales of strange noises and flickering lights, daring each other to approach. But none knew the true horrors that lay hidden within, for inside young Emily Harper lived a nightmare. The house became her prison, its shadows her only companions. The walls seemed to close in on her, each creak and groan of the old structure a reminder of her isolation. The once vibrant home had turned into a labyrinth of despair, where every corner held a memory of her stolen freedom. Days blurred into an endless cycle of fear and despair. Time lost its meaning as the sun rose and set, unnoticed. The relentless march of days turned into weeks, then months, and finally years. Each passing moment was a reminder of the life she was missing, the childhood slipping through her fingers like sand. Emily spent her days cleaning, cooking, and tending to the man's every whim. Her small hands scrubbed floors, washed dishes, and prepared meals, tasks that seemed never-ending. The chores were a constant, a way to keep her occupied and under control. She moved through the house like a ghost, her presence barely acknowledged, her efforts never appreciated. He forbade her from speaking, from looking out the windows, from even dreaming of a life beyond the walls that held her captive. The windows, once a portal to the outside world, became barriers, taunting her with glimpses of freedom she could never reach. Her voice, once filled with laughter and curiosity, was silenced, replaced by the heavy weight of fear and obedience. Her only solace was a small, dusty attic room. It was a place where she could momentarily escape the man's oppressive presence. The attic, filled with forgotten items and memories, became her sanctuary. Here, she could let her guard down, if only for a moment, and dream of a life beyond her prison. There, surrounded by cobwebs and forgotten memories, she clung to the hope of escape. The attic window, though small and dirty, offered a sliver of the outside world. She would sit for hours, imagining the life she could have, the friends she would make, the places she would see. It was this hope that kept her going, that gave her the strength to endure. Years turned into a decade. The seasons changed, marking the passage of time. But for Emily, each day was the same. She watched as the world outside moved on without her, the trees blossoming in spring, the leaves turning in autumn, the snow falling in winter. Each change a reminder of the life she was missing, the years she would never get back. Emily grew taller, but her spirit remained broken. The girl who once dreamed of adventures and possibilities was now a shadow of her former self. Her eyes, once bright with curiosity, were now dull and lifeless. The weight of her captivity had taken its toll, leaving her a shell of the person she could have been. The man's cruelty knew no bounds. His anger was unpredictable, his punishments severe. Emily learned to read his moods, to anticipate his outbursts, but no amount of caution could protect her from his wrath. Each day was a test of survival, a battle to stay out of his way, to avoid his ire. He controlled her with threats and violence, reminding her daily that no one knew she existed. His words were like poison, seeping into her mind, convincing her that she was alone, that no one would come to save her. The physical pain was nothing compared to the emotional torment, the constant reminder that she was invisible, forgotten. He told her the outside world was a dangerous place, filled with people who would hurt her. He painted a picture of a world filled with monsters, a place where she would be lost and alone. His lies were designed to keep her compliant, to make her believe that he was her only protector, her only chance at safety. He convinced her that she was safer with him, that he was the only one who truly cared for her. His moments of false kindness were the most confusing, the times when he would pretend to be caring, to show her affection. It was a twisted game, a way to keep her off balance, to make her doubt her own reality. But deep down, Emily knew the truth. She knew that his kindness was a lie, that his protection was a prison. She held on to the belief that there was a world beyond the walls, a place where she could be free. It was this belief that kept her going, that gave her the strength to endure. She was a prisoner and he was her jailer. The house, once a home, was now a cage, and the man, once a guardian, was now her captor. But Emily was determined to find a way out, to reclaim the life that had been stolen from her. She knew that one day she would be free. One day, everything changed. A small act of defiance, a dropped tray, a moment of distraction. The man, enraged, stormed out of the house, leaving the front door slightly ajar. It was a chance Emily never dared to dream of. Her heart pounded in her chest. This was her opportunity. Fear threatened to consume her, but a spark of determination ignited within her. She had to escape. Emily crept towards the door, her bare feet silent on the cold hardwood floor. Each creak of the house sent shivers down her spine. She could hear her own breath, ragged and shallow. As she slipped through the narrow opening, the fresh air hit her like a wave. The sun, so long absent from her life, blinded her momentarily, but she didn't stop. She ran. Emily didn't know where she was going, only that she had to get as far away from the house as possible. The night was dark, and the forest seemed endless, but she didn't care. All she knew was that she had to keep moving, keep running, until she felt safe. The trees loomed over her like silent sentinels, their branches reaching out as if to offer some semblance of protection. The ground beneath her feet was uneven, filled with roots and rocks that threatened to trip her up, but she pushed on, driven by a desperate need to escape. She ran until her lungs burned and her legs ached. Every breath was a struggle, every step a battle against the fatigue that threatened to overwhelm her. Her heart pounded in her chest, a relentless drumbeat that echoed the fear coursing through her veins. She could hear the sound of her own footsteps, a frantic rhythm that seemed to match the chaos in her mind. The world around her blurred into a haze of shadows and shapes, but she didn't dare slow down. She couldn't afford to stop, not yet. Finally, she collapsed on the side of a dusty road, her body racked with sobs. The adrenaline that had fueled her flight was gone, leaving her feeling empty and broken. She lay there, gasping for breath, tears streaming down her face as the reality of her situation crashed over her. The road was deserted, a lonely stretch of asphalt that seemed to stretch on forever. She felt utterly alone, a tiny speck in a vast, uncaring world. A passing motorist, a kind woman with gentle eyes, stopped to help. The woman approached cautiously, her concern evident in the way she moved. She knelt beside Emily, her voice soft and soothing as she asked if she was okay. Emily could barely respond, her voice choked with emotion. The woman's presence was a lifeline, a beacon of hope in the darkness that had consumed her. At first, Emily was too terrified to speak. The words caught in her throat, trapped by the fear that still gripped her. She looked up at the woman, her eyes wide with terror, unable to form a coherent sentence. The woman didn't push, didn't demand answers. She simply waited, her patience a balm to Emily's frayed nerves. But the woman's calm demeanor and reassuring words slowly chipped away at the wall of fear that had imprisoned her for so long. She spoke in gentle tones, her words a soothing melody that helped to calm Emily's racing heart. She offered comfort, a promise of safety that Emily desperately needed to hear. Gradually, the fear began to recede, replaced by a tentative sense of trust. The police arrived soon after. Their presence was both a relief and a source of anxiety for Emily. She knew that they were there to help, but the thought of reliving her ordeal was almost too much to bear. The flashing lights and the uniformed officers were a stark reminder of the reality she had been trying to escape. Emily, hesitant at first, found herself confiding in a young female officer. The officer's kind eyes and gentle demeanor made it easier for Emily to open up. She spoke haltingly at first, her voice barely above a whisper, but the officer listened intently, her expression one of genuine concern. The officer listened patiently, her expression a mixture of horror and compassion. She didn't interrupt, didn't rush Emily to finish. She simply let her speak, offering a silent support that was more comforting than words could ever be. Emily felt a weight lift from her shoulders as she shared her story, the burden of her pain lessening with each word. As Emily recounted her ordeal, the words tumbled out in a torrent of pain and relief. She spoke of the fear, the desperation, the moments when she thought she wouldn't make it. The tears flowed freely, a cathartic release of the emotions she had kept bottled up for so long. The officer's presence was a steady anchor, grounding her as she navigated the storm of her memories. The police, realizing the gravity of the situation, immediately launched an investigation. They moved with a sense of urgency, their actions a testament to the seriousness of Emily's plight. They gathered evidence, spoke to witnesses, and began piecing together the events that had led to this moment. Emily watched them work, a sense of hope slowly beginning to take root in her heart. The nightmare was finally over. Emily felt a sense of relief wash over her, a feeling she hadn't experienced in what felt like an eternity. She knew that there was still a long road ahead, that healing would take time, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a glimmer of hope. She was free, and that was all that mattered. The house on the hill, once a source of mystery and speculation, became a crime scene. Its eerie silhouette had long been a subject of local legends, whispered about in hushed tones. Children dared each other to approach it, but none ever did. The house stood as a silent sentinel, guarding its dark secrets. Police swarmed the property, their faces grim as they uncovered the truth behind its decaying facade. The air was thick with tension, the weight of the past pressing down on everyone present. Officers moved methodically, their flashlights cutting through the gloom, revealing the horrors that had been hidden for so long. The house was a labyrinth of secrets, each room revealing another layer of horror. The walls seemed to whisper tales of suffering. The floors creaked under the weight of untold stories. Every corner held a new terror, every shadow a new fear. It was as if the house itself was alive, feeding off the misery it had witnessed. They found chains bolted to the walls, rusted and stained, a grim testament to the cruelty that had taken place within these walls. The sight of them sent shivers down the spines of even the most seasoned officers. These chains had held victims captive, their freedom stolen, their lives forever changed. A hidden room beneath the floorboards, a secret chamber that had been a prison for the innocent. The discovery of this room was like opening a Pandora's box, unleashing a flood of emotions and questions. How many had suffered here? How many had cried out for help that never came? And a collection of diaries detailing years of abuse. These diaries were a window into the soul of the house, each page a cry for help, a plea for mercy. The The words written within them were haunting, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit even in the face of unimaginable horror. But the most chilling discovery was yet to come. The house still had more secrets to reveal, more horrors to uncover. The air grew colder, the shadows deeper, as if the house itself was aware of what was about to be found. In a locked shed behind the house, a place that had been overlooked in the initial search, the true extent of the horror was revealed. This shed, seemingly innocuous, held the darkest secrets of all. They found evidence of other victims. The shed was a macabre gallery of suffering, filled with items that spoke of lives interrupted, dreams shattered. Each piece of evidence was a story in itself, a testament to the cruelty of the man who had lived here. Clothing, photographs, and personal belongings hinted at a horrifying truth. Emily was not the man's only captive. The realization hit the officers like a punch to the gut. There were others, many others, who had suffered the same fate. The scope of the man's crimes was staggering, his cruelty boundless. The investigation took on a new urgency. Who was this man? This monster who had brought so much pain and suffering to so many? The officers were determined to find out, to bring him to justice. The weight of their responsibility was immense, the stakes higher than ever. And how many lives had he destroyed? The search for answers became a race against time, a desperate bid to uncover the truth before more lives were lost. The man's face, sketched by a police artist, became a symbol of the evil that had lurked in their midst. The small town of Cedar Grove was about to face its darkest hour. The community, once peaceful and idyllic, was now a place of fear and suspicion. The residents looked at each other with new eyes, wondering who among them could be capable of such horrors. The town would never be the same again, its innocence lost forever.